All right. Well, folks, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune, because it's time for another week of the RecPoker Podcast. This is our weekly chats edition. We've also got a weekly forums edition that's all about strategy. I'm Jim Reid, your host for both. I go by Bluffsterini in the home game and at RecPoker Jim on socials. And I have the best freaking job in the world, talking poker with my friends every Monday night at 7:30 Eastern, live on YouTube. You can join us for free, and you can win a prize just for showing up. Now, we're going to talk to Matt Matros in just a second. First, I'm proud to introduce our sponsors. We're brought to you by Running Aces. They are the official sponsor of the RecPoker Podcast. Most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization, so we really depend on support from our sponsors and from our premium members who take part in our training materials and study opportunities for only $22 a month. Now, of course, you can always get a free account at RecPoker. We've got a ton of free resources for recreational poker players, and all it takes to sign up is an email address and a smile. But you can also get your first month of premium membership for only $5 by using the code RecPoker at checkout. Or, we love supporting local food banks. So if you make a donation to your local food bank for any amount, even $1, and send us a receipt, we'll happily send you your first month of premium membership at RecPoker for free, just as a way of saying thanks for helping out your fellow humans. Now, you get to know my voice pretty well because they let me host the show on Mondays, but I promise I am only one man, and it takes a crew to make all the magic happen around here. We call our leadership panel the Wrecking Crew. If you want to learn more about me or the rest of the Wrecking Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew, or just listen up. You're going to meet a few of them here on the show tonight, including our newest Wrecking Crew member, Matt Matros, who I'm very excited to be talking to. But we've got myself, Lorianne Persinger, Joe Coolis, John Somsky, Rob Washam, and of course our invisible producer, Rob Gardner, in the booth this week. Gang, this is a really exciting week at RecPoker. Tonight, right after the podcast, Mark Zhang is doing a coaching session with one of our premium members, Joe Rafter. On Wednesday, Matt Affleck is doing a coaching session with one of our premium members, Jesse Schrader. And on Thursday, Wrecking Crew member Matt Matros is doing a coaching session with this guy, Jim Reid. So this is really cool. I love how we're doing this. We started doing this last month. If you're a premium member at RecPoker, you get points for all the different premium events that you attend. And at the end of the month, we kind of draw the names out of a hat. And whoever wins gets these coaching sessions from Mark Zhang and Matt Affleck. So if you're considering getting involved, I'd encourage you, come jump in. And you're not going to get a better experience. I've been coached by Mark Zhang. I've been coached by Matt Affleck. I'm really looking forward to the coaching I'm going to be getting from Matt Matros over the next few months. And there's just really no substitute for getting involved and getting some of this one-on-one coaching. It's never too early to do it. So if you're thinking about maybe this is the month I'm going to drop my $5 and go join RecPoker Premium, I really encourage you to do it. Invisible producer Rob Gardner, you've also got a new coaching segment that's coming to RecPoker this week through the Ramp Poker video course. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? That's on Wednesday night, right?
Yeah, me and Chris Jones are going to be transitioning some of the deep dive stuff, and we're going to be doing a once a month session on the fourth Wednesday of every month, 7:30 Eastern. And we're basically going to go through a different video from the Ramp Poker Core training course each week. We'll watch the video as a community, and then we'll have a discussion time. You guys will be able to ask questions, be there to answer any questions you have. And again, that course is really catered towards teaching a simpler way to think about the game that's easier to come up with decisions and makes playing the game more fun, more casual, more laid back. It's a great time. So if you're a premium member, check that out. If you're not a premium member, you should be a premium member so that you can check that out. So hopefully we'll see you Wednesday night at 7:30 Eastern.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Lorianne Persinger, it's not all about videos and studying. You actually got a chance to go play in real life. Is that right?
That is correct, Jim. The circuit is in town, pun intended, at Horseshoe. Started earlier this week. And I played one of the events yesterday, the 250 20K guarantee ring event. And it was one of 5 events that were going on simultaneously in a very hot, very crowded room yesterday where the AC was on the fritz. So it was fun though. I went between being card dead and sweating my ass off. Can I say ass? I think I just did. Yeah, I think I just did. No, Joseph, I can't. Okay. I can't say sorry. No, it's just it was just so yeah. It was an interesting experience to say the least.
Yeah, AC matters when you're down there. Now, AC always makes me think
especially
AC
with low
DC.
ceilings. It's still the low. It's one of the older rooms.
Oh yeah,
lower ceiling too. So it does make a difference.
Speaking of AC/DC, Joe Coolis, you were rocking out or something this week? What's going on?
No, I would have recognized. So I had the fun experience actually of my daughter is in college, started her first year in college, and so I started playing guitar when I was in college, and she started learning on my guitar. But obviously, I didn't really want that to be brought to school, so we actually go shopping for the guitar that she got to choose to start her little journey. So it's a nice little return to be able to, you end up walking into the store and saying, "Guitars, I love guitar," and the old joke, and but then seeing her get excited about her guitar was a nice experience.
Nice, good for you.
What type of guitar?
Acoustic. So she ended up with a Cole, which is it's a Korean brand, but it sounds great, and it's a guitar that she can play and learn, and then not worry if it gets kicked by a roommate or something like that before she moves on to something else. So
I feel attacked personally, just because I'm that clumsy a guy. John, speaking about playing and learning, John Somsky, you run our home game club, and we're getting to the end of Marek Madness, which means that April's right around the corner. What's coming up in April?
Well, every April on the third Saturday of the month, we have the Go for the Gold series. So if you have earned a silver pin, then you are eligible to play in the Go for the Gold series. Just as an FYI, exciting. I am not eligible to play in the Gold for the Gold series.
And the way that works is if you have ever won a silver pin in any capacity, that's your invitation, and you get to play in the Go for the Gold tournament every year. And it's the only way that you can win a gold pin. So far, the only winners have been Daniel Kennedy, who, thank God, was the inaugural winner, because last year it was Taylor Moss who won. And if Taylor was the inaugural winner of another goddamn thing over here at RecPoker, I swear to God, we'd have to widen the doorways in his home so that he could get that big fat head of his through there. But it's very elite company. I will say that, very elite company. And I will just correct you. I've got it in the calendar here on Wednesday, the 16th, the third Wednesday of the month at 9 o'clock.
Wednesday,
Eastern.
Not Saturday. Wednesday.
Yeah. And that's a special, that's kind of like the Masters, right? Like once you get the green jacket, you can show up every year. John, how do people know if they're eligible? Are they going to get a message or something telling them how to sign up for it?
Yes, I will be right at the end of March here. I will create a list of everyone who is eligible to play. I will send them a private message on RecPoker, so check your messages. And it will include instructions on how to sign up. It is its very own club. So it's a different RecPoker club than we normally do the TOCs. It's a different than where our normal games are.
There you go.
Somsky, right, I haven't gotten my private DM yet.
I don't think you have the silver pin that allows you to play in it either.
Rob, what you have to do, Rob, is you have to either win a tournament that, to be a tournament champion, or you have to be the owner/runner of a program and then create a tournament with only you and nobody else. And then you win it, and then you get a silver pin. So that's
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Somsky. My mistake. I was told that as long as you had an asterisk, you could get in. So I apologize.
No, I don't.
Game selection.
My only aspiration is like Taylor. I want to live rent free in Jim's head. That's my goal.
That's the real gold medal.
That's my goal. I don't need any of the pins or anything. I just want to live rent free. Yeah.
You just don't want to live rent free in his basement. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but well said. Rob Washam, speaking about living rent free in people's heads, you've kind of had a tough time playing against the old people down there in Arizona. Yes. They've been living rent free in your head. What's going on with that?
Yeah, it's really old. It's really strange being as old as the old people, but there it is. I finally got off the schneid in our little recreation center tournament that they have 3 times a week. I think there was 4 tables this time, and I actually got the money this time. So I was very glad to get off the schneid on that one.
Good for you.
And it's been since December, I think, since I actually cashed in one of those.
I was
Then
gonna say congratulations, but before you
thank
go
you.
on, for us youngins, can you explain what a schneid is exactly?
Yeah, how do you get off the? What is a schneid?
And
to get off the
how do you
schneid?
get off of it? Yeah.
It's an expression. I really don't even know what it means, what schneid means, but I know getting off the schneid means that you've had some success that you didn't previously have.
Mhm.
I
That's
thought it was
the
a
only
card
thing
term.
I couldn't define schneid for you.
Isn't it a card term? Isn't it in sheep's head or euchre or something like that?
No, I don't know. I've
don't
only
know.
heard it in the context of the expression. That's interesting.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
here's a
Same
live
here.
update brought to you by Google AI Overview.
Okay.
Schneid, pronounced Schneid, is U.S. slang for a losing streak, particularly in sports.
Okay.
So it's the
Thank
losing
you.
streak
Oh,
itself.
there you go.
Thanks,
So it's very
John.
apropos then.
Yeah, that's nicely
term
done.
was very apropos because
I'm-
I was on quite a losing streak. Now there
That's
is a conversation about whether poker is a sport or not. But
Oh yeah,
I have been on a losing streak, so we'll use it.
Yeah. there you go. And the last thing we were going to talk about this week, Rob, you were saying that Wheel of Time. We were talking about TV shows we were watching, and
season
Wheel of
3
Time is
came
back.
out. Season 3 is out now, so I've been watching that. Yeah, I'm a huge Wheel of Time fan, so
Yeah.
thought I'd mention it for anybody else that's into that.
Rob and I are both big fantasy nerds from back in the day. It's one of the things that we've bonded over here at RecPoker. And I think the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan is one of my favorite series of all time throughout any, I guess the Dark Tower from Stephen King would be another one that's in that like top 3. And of course the Tolkien, like that's pretty hard to argue with. And what about any other Wheel of Time fans out there or fantasy nerds like Rob and I? Joe, you've got John. Yeah,
John,
Joe. If you're in the YouTube chat, type in your favorite fantasy books. I think we might have a longer conversation about this on a future episode because reading is important. And, even leisure reading, fun reading, especially for kids and people that are growing up and forming their brains and forming their own values, judgment systems, and that kind of stuff. I think more people should do more reading. And that's a hell of a segue. Let's take prominent poker author. You see what I did there, gang? That's called a segue. And new Wrecking Crew member Matt Matros onto the show. So, Matt, first of all, a lot of our listeners are probably already familiar with you and your work. You've been on the show before. I just want to say thanks for taking some time for us and talking to our audience about the recreational poker world. Thanks for coming back on the show, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me back. It's always fun.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. We open every interview with the same question, so I'm going to give it to you as well, Matt Matros. How would you define your own role in the poker world today?
Well, Jim, it's a version of what it's always been. I've always been a poker player, a poker writer, and a poker coach in some order. Of course, when I first started out, I wasn't doing much coaching, but I was always writing about poker even before I was established as even a semi-professional player. And as I gained more experience, I took on coaching. And for a very long time now, I've done all 3. And I try to always do at least some of each, but these days the focus is mostly on coaching and writing, I would say, although I'm still trying to play. We've got a Poker Stars event in Philadelphia coming up next month that I'm looking forward to. And I do plan to head out to Vegas, at least for a couple events at the World Series this summer. So it's not like I'm not playing. You kind of have to keep playing if you're going to keep coaching, in my opinion. But the focus has been mostly on coaching and writing lately.
Very cool. Well, we've got some cool stuff lined up. So I kind of teased it at the top of the show. Matt is going to be giving me some coaching lessons because glutton for punishment that I am, I'm heading back to the WSOP to play in the main event this year. And Matt, you were one of the folks that really encouraged me in my run last year. You gave me some great advice. It was awesome having you come along for the ride. And on the 4th Thursday of every month in March, April, May, and June, you're going to be kind of taking me under your wing and coaching me up for how to approach the main event this year. And all our RecPoker members are invited to come and join the fun. So that's starting this week. And I'm really looking forward to that. More on that in just a minute. First, we're going to open the action with our speed round and break the ice here with some lightning fast questions coming at you. Matt, you can pass if it puts you in an uncomfortable position, but we're mostly just looking for quick answers. What's at the top of your mind? Opening the action with Matt Matros. We're going to start with an easy one. Matt, What is your favorite poker hand?
Ace king.
Is poker a gamble or a skill game?
Skill.
What's your biggest poker pet peeve?
Stalling.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Absolutely.
Is Ace King a drawing hand?
No.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
A hot dog is not a sandwich.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs. Only because I'm more allergic to cats.
It depends on how they're prepared. What's one thing that you're afraid of?
Birds, weirdly.
Okay. Should vacations be lazy or busy?
Oh man, I hate vacations for that reason. I will say lazy, but it's close.
What's one thing you complain about in your life?
God, how do I narrow it down? I guess having to get up early in the morning.
Yep. The game, Yale, Harvard, or Michigan, Ohio State?
I mean, I went to Yale, so I have to say the game is Yale, Harvard.
Yeah. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Oh God, no.
Name one player that you respect.
Ike Haxton.
Yellow light coming up. Slow down or speed up?
Slow down.
Who is your poker nemesis?
Poker nemesis. I had some great battles with the late Amir Vahidi, so I will say him. He was a tough opponent.
Nice. Are you pro chop or no chop?
Wait, do we mean make a deal or do we mean playing the blinds when it folds to you?
Oh, great question. I meant make a deal, but I've got the next question for you.
I don't like to make deals, but I will do it if it's a really favorable one.
Okay, now, if you are playing cash and you're playing in a room with a high hand jackpot or something like that, and you're in the small blind and you want to give a code to the person to your left that you don't want to just chop, is there a buzzword or a code? All right, sorry, don't worry. We're answering the question anyway. We're going to ask this question anyway. No, no more buzzers. That's it. Is there a secret code word you can use to tell them that you don't want to chop and you want to play this out and try and bust the bad beat?
Oh man, I don't play enough cash to know, but usually once you don't chop with someone, you're pretty much not chopping the rest of the time, right? I don't know if there's a secret handshake to get past that, but usually it's always funny to me though when I'm able to chop with the guy on my left but not on the player to my right, because now when I'm in position I'm not chopping, and when you can rig that, it's a really good spot for you, and it seems to happen sometimes.
That's a good one. That's a good one. All right, perfect. We're gonna let our proprietary algorithm derive a score for you based on those answers, but I feel like it's going to be a very high score. Congratulations.
Oh great, glad to hear it.
Now, I want to just, if you're watching live on YouTube, then if you've got questions for Matt, please type them into the chat there, and we'll make sure to get them to him. And we're also looking for some suggestions for names of poker players or industry people to play Stake, Study, Stack with Mr. Matros here at the end of the show. And of course, I also want to encourage our folks to stick around. We're going to do a food bank raffle at the end of the show and give away some fantastic prizes. And it's all free, it's all fun, and it supports a local food bank. So get your questions in. I want some Stake, Study, Stack names, and stick around to the end of the show so we can give away a prize. Now, we're also excited to have you here, Matt. We talked in advance and sort of put some questions together. Lorianne Persinger, you got the long straw, and you get to go first. Why don't you lead us off?
Thanks, Jim, and welcome back to the show, Matt. I know you have 3 bracelets, as I assume a lot of other people know as well. You have 3 bracelets, one each in limit hold'em, no limit hold'em, and mix hold'em. What is your favorite poker variant?
These days, it's definitely no limit hold'em. And thank you for the question, Lorianne.
You're very welcome.
I grew up as a limit hold'em player. That's where I cut my teeth, and that was what most of my play was for a long time when I was a cash player. But since I'm primarily a tournament player now, that's pretty much the only game that's spread for the most part in tournaments. There are of course exceptions, but the main tournament game is of course no limit hold'em. And also I've just really loved studying no limit hold'em in this current solver era of poker. So definitely no limit has become my favorite game. Limit probably was for a long time, but these days it's definitely no limit.
Okay. And to veer off a little bit, I know that last couple of years you've written books with your 23 hands in 2023, and then you did one last year. How many hands do you have so far for 2025?
I'm trying to write up an email every month to some people who I pool a little bit of action with and who I discuss poker with. And so I try to keep keep tabs on some interesting hands and have at least a few every month. And so it shouldn't be too difficult for me to round up 25 hands by the end, but I won't actually pick the hands that make it into the book until I see all the different choices I have and think about what themes I might want to focus on, because that could be a really great hand, but if it doesn't relate to a concept where I have a few other hands that I can use it for, it doesn't really work as a book just on its own. I try to have some kind of thematic sections of these hand history books so that it's not just like a random collection of 20 something hands. I try to group them so that there's at least something connecting some of them.
Oh, that makes sense.
And that prompts our first rabbit hole question of the interview so far. Tell me about this, like pooling your action with some friends. So this is like you have a kind of a reciprocal.
It's more of a staking. It's not quite pooling action. I misspoke a little bit there. I have some investors who have a piece of me in my poker tournaments, and so I keep them posted. Kind of like if you know what Greg Raymer does and has been doing for many, many years. I have a similar pool for some of my action. Since my playing is not full time these days, and the variance of tournaments is quite big, and if I still want to play, 4-figure buy-ins with thousands of entrants in them, I don't really want to fade the variance of that out of my own bankroll exclusively. So I have some investors, and for a little piece of my yearly results, they get hand history updates, and they get my thoughts about what I should be working on and what other things are happening. So it's not really, I kind of misspoke when I said pooling action. It's really just my investors that I send that to.
Still, that's a really cool framework for that kind of thing, because I think the recreational poker world is very opaque to this the staking world and how that kind of works. And as I've gotten more involved in the poker world, I've taken on sort of staking on a trip by trip basis. But I see all these different ways of doing it, and it seems like it's a really important way of being a serious player. If you're putting in volume, it's kind of hard to do that on your own. Is it that important?
Yeah, I mean, I never took much staking for most of my career. It was really only in the last few years, with the pandemic shutting down first a lot of the games, and that was around. I had a young kid at home around the same time as well, and so I knew I just wasn't going to have either as much bankroll to play around with or as many time to grind events. And so I wanted to be able to keep playing and stay in action at a certain level. And so it made sense just to reach out to just a few people to just take a little bit of a piece to deal with the variance. I think ideally I would love to stake myself like I used to do for years and years. And maybe someday I will get back to that. But for now, because I'm not really putting in, as you say, the volume is just not there for me these days, and so I kind of, to withstand the variance, could use some help. And it works great because the investors are all people I know, and they're happy because we've been winning, and so it's a mutually beneficial relationship. But it's not the only way to go. I think if you can afford to do it without investors, that's ideal. But it is tough. Tournament poker, especially if you're going to grind events that have huge fields, the variance is insane. And so it does really help.
Oh, thanks for sharing. I appreciate that kind of peek behind the curtain. Rob Washam, you're next.
Hey, hi, Matt. We've had a couple conversations. I've done your two main books, The Poker Brain and The Game Plan, as part of our book study here.
Thank you so much for that, Rob.
Yeah, it's been, I love both books. They're just so good and so geared towards what we're trying to do here at RecPoker, being with the recreational players and teaching them some of the concepts that make it more fun for them to play. But what I'd like to know is, in your writing, what have you learned yourself about poker based on writing those books?
Yeah, I've learned a ton in the course of writing the books. I mean, The Poker Brain especially, I had to kind of learn a lot about what the solvers were doing myself, because I knew that to write a book, that book came out, I believe in 2021 or 2022, it might have been 22, that in the solver era, if you were not going to really know that stuff cold, then you couldn't really write a book on it. And so I had, looked at enough hand ranges and had some pretty good ideas about what the solver was doing, but I had to take it to a whole other level to be able to teach the material to other people. And so I really had to do a deep dive into where these computer ranges were coming from and what are some of the ideas behind them and some of the stranger solver outputs you might come across. What is the reason for that? And so I learned a lot about how the computers are, not necessarily how, because it's just math. Like the computer doesn't have a how. The computer is just spitting out an answer to a math problem. But what we can do is look at the outputs that come out of it and find patterns and figure out ways we can apply these outputs to our own strategy, have ideas that will apply that will maybe make us guess. If we had to guess at the answer to some of these problems, we can come pretty close now. We're never going to be solvers ourselves, but if we have some idea of why the solutions are coming out the way they are, it can really help our play. And it has really kind of changed a lot of my pre-flop style, which before I was probably more willing to just sort of ignore. I don't want to say ignore my hand completely, because I was never one of those guys who would 3-bet with like 7 deuce offsuit or something. But I will say that I have a better idea of what I'm looking for when I'm picking hands to put in my range now than I did before all of the solver stuff.
That's fantastic. Thanks for that answer. That makes a lot of sense. And I also know that in the poker brain, I think all of us that were in the book study realized that you were offering us an insight to the solver that we could actually comprehend. So I thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was the idea. So thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Joe Coolis, you're next.
My question actually comes from essentially pedagogical ideas in terms of, we're rec poker players, right? And there's a significant amount of variability in terms of how difficult or complicated or uncomplicated that you can make poker. And I think one of the things that rec players often struggle with is, the strategies to beat 1-3 are actually fairly straightforward and easy, right? And if you're predatory, you can get there. But yet there's also this entire mathematical details. Your book, from my estimation, is about simplifying things, right? Making it much more streamlined. So you talk about the buckets and some other things, and you're trying to give that throughput to players of how to understand things. But to be really successful at poker, because the margins are so narrow, you have to actually get into the weeds, get into the details, and actually know something about what the solver is saying, because it's not saying something. A solver doesn't make a decision, as you said, on the basis of a reason. It does it because the math tells it that that's the best option out of the menu. So how should a recreational poker view their educational journey, given those two difficulties that are these opposing approaches?
Yeah, thanks for that, Joe. And I think the approach that you talk about is true of both my books. Certainly, the main idea of the game plan is to try to make things as simple as possible for a player who is a recreational player to be able to have a chance at success in a tough field, maybe a big buy-in tournament. I think that kind of relates to the answer to your question, even though you were talking about the buckets concept that I bring up in both books, I think. But you have to walk before you can run. You have to run before you can fly. And so it's true that the strategies for 1-3, I mean, depending on how soft the game is, you could just play a strategy where you literally only play really strong hands and you might be able to beat the game. And that's fine. That's if your only goal is to make a little money playing poker and you enjoy sitting around and waiting for a big pair or ace king all day, and then that's fine. But if someone wants, as you say, to get really good and to have big success at poker, they're going to have to take more steps. And so I think the key is to do it one step at a time. So if you're starting out by just playing really strong hands and beating weak players, then you learn how to add a few hands. You learn how to play some hands that are not quite as strong. And then you start learning about some of the concepts behind, okay, well, maybe I don't always just have a good hand. When might I bluff? When is a good situation to bluff? Even if you don't have an overarching theory of bluffing and value betting and everything right away, you start by coming up with some spots where it really does start to make sense to you. And you kind of just build it one step at a time, one building block at a time, until eventually you may be ready to look at, okay, now I'm going to try to figure out how to play across my entire range in maybe one fairly straightforward spot. So maybe you've raised an early position, you've started with a pretty good hand. Your selection of bluffs, if you're going to bluff, are going to be pretty straightforward. Like, well, okay, usually on this ace high board, I either have a pair of aces or I have pocket pair that's not really a bluff because no better hand will fold, but I know I have some queen jack suited and jack 10 suited. Those are my bluffing candidates. Even just having that kind of thought will get you on your way to figuring out how to think about your range, how to think about where to pick your bluffs. And even if you're not right, quote unquote, according to the solver, even if the solver would have picked some other hand, as long as you start thinking about it and thinking about your range and coming up with different ideas, you're going to be tough to play against, because you don't really have to play perfectly, but you do have to, if you're going to go against tough competition, you have to at least think through your range and have some kind of plan. And just having a reason for what you're doing and having a thought in your head of which hands you're going to put in which bucket, as to use my term that you just referenced, I think will put people well on their way to understanding deeper things. So I don't know if that totally answers your question, but basically what I would say is for a rec player, you have to move on to the one level at a time. So you're beating 1-3 and you want to try something else, then move up to 2-5. Or if you want to try tournaments, start at the lowest level and start moving up. If you try to go straight into a whole bunch of studying after 1-3 and think you're going to become one of the best players in the world overnight, that's just not realistic. But what is realistic is if you keep working on your game and take it one step at a time, then over time you can get there. I believe that almost anyone can if they're willing to put the work in.
No, that
Awesome.
I think that answers the question. So thank you.
All right. So yeah, reminder, YouTube chatters, get those questions in. Again, we're going to do our raffle at the end of the show. And also, we love supporting local food banks. You are able to make donations to RecPoker right through the YouTube chat there, either as a super chat, a super comment, or a super sticky. And we share a portion of all those donations with a local food bank as well. So consider that part of how you're helping make the world a better place. And if you want to help us out specifically, you can go to rec.poker/support. You can both find some ways to help us monetarily, and also some ways to help us out without dropping a dime. And also some causes that we support, Wrecking Crew members, some of our favorite charities and good causes. You can find information about all that at rec.poker/support. And of course, I love it when we get new premium members or folks that subscribe to our Patreon platform, where you can actually get almost all of our training videos every month are downloaded right to your phone as an audio version if you're a Patreon subscriber at the $10 a month tier. So I want to thank Ginger Lynch, Richard Hernandez, and Chris Potenza for their contributions and for taking that leap and getting more involved here with what we're doing at RecPoker. So thank you to you three for all your support. So we're getting some good YouTube questions coming in here. But Lorianne, let's go to you again first. We'll get into some of these questions from the panel, and then we'll wrap up with some YouTube stuff a little later on.
Okay. Thanks again, Jim. My question is a little simple, or maybe not so simple, but what are the biggest mistakes that you see Recs make at the table, recreational players?
Yeah, I don't think that's a very simple question at all, but I think the mistakes of rec players can fall into different classes. So there's the amateur player, or the quote unquote fishy player, who's really not that interested in trying to have a really strong strategy. And so those players will simply call too many hands and not raise enough. Very simply, they're playing too loose and too passive. And so these are players who are really not trying to have an edge. They're just there to gamble, have fun. Maybe they try some creative moves every once in a while, but because their main mode of operation is to just call and see what happens before the flop with a whole lot of hands, they're at too big a disadvantage to start with to ever really succeed. Then there's the recreational player who's kind of starting out trying to win their way through into tournaments. And I think the biggest mistakes that they make are also not being aggressive enough, but possibly the other side of it might be that they are too tight and maybe not tight enough in the certain spots. And so what I'm trying to get at here is a lot of recreational players are willing to enter multi-way pots with hands where they probably should be squeezing or folding, but they're going to call with their king, jack, or king, queen or something because it's a pretty good hand. And now they can call and only cost them 2 big blinds or something. But in those kind of spots, you really want to try to get a heads up if you can, or just fold. And you can play a lot tighter and more aggressive in that spot. So there are a lot of rec players are too loose in multi-way pots and not aggressive enough in multi-way pots. And they tend to be too tight in other spots. So if there's a spot where they're getting close to the money, and there's an opportunity to put pressure on opponents because of you have maybe a medium stack and you can attack some smaller ones. A lot of rec players are just happy that they're going to have a really good chance to make the money, and they don't try to put pressure on the people they could. And they also know that, oh, it's ICM, I'm supposed to be tighter, which is true. But what's also true is other people are also supposed to be tighter too. And if you can take advantage of that, that's actually one of the best spots for you in terms of poker. So I would say the biggest mistake Recs make overall, too loose passive in multi-way pots, not aggressive enough or loose enough in spots where they can put pressure on people who are playing too tight in tournaments, and also just in general, probably playing a bit too tight a little bit before the bubble. It's hard to play too tight on the bubble if you're in danger of not cashing, especially in a big field, but you can play too tight as we're getting close to the bubble. It hasn't really kicked in yet. A lot of players over adjust to that and start making really big folds before it makes sense.
Yep. Great answer.
Thank you for that.
And that's on the felt. What are maybe some hidden mistakes that recreational players make away from the tables, or opportunity costs away from the tables?
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, away from the table, I think the biggest mistake, not just rec players, but almost all poker players make, is they get to a certain level and they're content with where they're at, and they don't really invest in trying to improve or trying to revisit their play anymore. And so complacency will kill you in this game, especially since it seems like every year there's more knowledge out there and players are improving. And even if you think you know how to play this game, you don't. Spoiler alert. Like, no one really knows. We're trying our best, and we have a lot more information than we used to have. But a really good player once said that if you don't think the version of you from 6 months ago is a fish, then you're doing something really wrong. And so
that's great.
I really took that to heart. And I think I look back at, even the years I had success winning all those bracelets, I would play so differently from that now. But also I would try to remember why I had success in those years and what did work about them as well. So you don't want to necessarily abandon what you've learned on your way up, but you kind of add other things to your repertoire. And so do I still want to take advantage of people who are going to play way too tight, around the bubble in the late phases of tourney? Yes, absolutely. But I also know in tournaments that I didn't win from that era, some of the hands I went broke with, when I look back on now, I'm like, I would never put my chips in there. And so you keep the stuff that makes sense, that still makes sense, and if it's going to work, but you also have to constantly be incorporating new elements to your game and revisiting some ideas you used to have back in the day. I mean, I would say in recent years, the stuff around ICM is probably the biggest shell shock to me, because my philosophy for most of my career was I don't really care about bubbling or sliding up the pay scale. I'm trying to win the tournament. And my results reflected that. I had a bunch of firsts and a bunch of eights and ninths and sevens and 10s and 12s and those kind of things. And very few I had some, but not a ton of like second, third, fourth, fifth. And I was very okay with that. But it turns out, if I was kind of looking at my results and like, wow, if I had fewer wins, but more seconds and fourths and stuff, I actually might have made a little bit more money over there. And so that was kind of mind blowing to me to realize that we were just wrong back in the day, where we thought that sliding up the pay scale didn't matter. It shouldn't be your primary focus, but it definitely does matter. And so being able to kind of think about both those things, trying to win the tournament, but also keeping in mind the pay structure, was an amazing topic for me to tackle, I'd say, at this stage in my career.
That's great. I love that. John Somsky, you're up. Oh, you're muted, John. I'm never change a thing, John. I want you to just be the full Somsky for the next 6 or 7 years of us being on this podcast together.
I unmuted back when Lorianne was starting her question, and then I had to clear my throat. So out of politeness, I muted, and then just totally forgot.
But also, where are we going in 6 or 7 years? We're still going to do this after that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, good point. Well, yeah. It's been 6 or 7 years. This is like, and we're still muting ourselves as we ask the questions. I'm so happy I was here for this today. That's
basically I'm untrainable, is what he said. So, my question: most professionals have a bankroll, whereas recreational players tend to have a budget. How does that make it different? What's the difference in shot taking that rec poker players should be doing versus professional players? Like, one thing I've heard for professionals is that you typically shouldn't play an event that you satellite into if your bankroll wouldn't handle playing the event outright anyway. Whereas I think almost no recreational players follow that. In other words, they'd be unwilling to buy into something directly, but they would be willing to satellite into it. So how should recreational players approach shot taking?
Yeah, all these questions of budget and bankroll are kind of hard to define, right? Because if you're a recreational player, meaning you're someone who has a regular job and who has money coming in, then it doesn't really matter if you lose your whole budget or bankroll or whatever, because you can just wait until you've earned enough money to have a budget or bankroll again. Whereas if you're a professional and you don't have any other money coming in, then risking some huge percentage of your bankroll is kind of a big deal, because if you lose your whole bankroll, then you have to find staking. You have to go to backers and say, okay, I went broke, but I'm a really good player. Please, put me into stuff. And you probably won't get nearly as good an arrangement in terms of EV as you had when you were on your own. And so all these factors matter. Like, are we replenishing this bankroll some other way? Do you have any other way of making money? And by the way, if you're a professional poker player with no other income streams, that's really tough to begin with, because poker, there's, no matter what form of it you're playing, there's just so many swings. I guess the one exception might be if you can really put in some crazy volume online at pretty low stakes, then maybe you can kind of ride out whatever swings would come in. But for the most part, especially if you're a tournament player, I mean, you have to assume that there's going to be some pretty bad downswings. I forget which player said it, but they said something like, however bad you think you're going to run when you start taking on this job, you're going to run so much worse than you ever thought that was possible. And so the best advice I ever heard when I was first considering turning pro is make sure you have some other way to make money, which is why I've always had either a writing gig or some other side hustle where I had some other money coming in. These days it's writing and coaching in addition to playing. If you're just playing, if that's your only source of income, that is tough. Having said all that, okay, so your question is about shot taking. And I think, that's a very personal preference kind of question. I mean, financially speaking, would most recreational players be better off selling their main event ticket versus playing the tournament? Of course. But it doesn't have to be, as Jim will tell you, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I mean, the beauty of this game is that you can have people take pieces of you if you think you're in over your head. And so my answer might be a bit of a cop-out, but what I would say is, if you found your way into a big tournament and you think it might be a little too expensive, then just sell some pieces. There's always going to be someone who's willing to take some little piece of you. And then you get the experience of playing it, which is, to me, invaluable. I mean, playing a big tournament with a good structure and tough players in addition to some weaker players. You don't want to play just tough players. I mean, you can, I guess, but that's really kind of like throwing your money away. But in a tournament that has some pros and some amateurs, like the main event of the World Series, for example, with an amazing structure, it's a fantastic experience to play it, and you do not need to risk $10,000 to play it. That's the great part of it. So I would say if it's out of your budget, but you really want to play, find a way to play it at a smaller level. And that's my advice for professionals as well as amateurs, honestly.
So now that you brought it up and we're talking about the main event, which is like the premier bucket list item for poker players, what is so special about it, and how should that influence the way you prepare for it compared to other events that are out there?
Yeah, that's a big question. It's one that Jim and I are going to talk about a bit when we start doing our coaching sessions leading up to the main event. First of all, there are some technical poker aspects of it that are quite different from other tournaments, which is that day one of the main event features much more deep stack play than most any other tournament in the world will give you. And so you might have a deep stack event where you start with 300 blinds at your local casino, but chances are after 45 minutes or whatever, you're back down to 100 blinds or less. And the rest of the tournament is pretty much at a quote unquote normal tournament stack size of like an average stack of 30 to 40 blinds or less even. The main event is super deep for an entire day. And even going forward into days 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., the average stack stays pretty high compared to other tournaments. So there's just a lot more play at bigger stack depths than you're used to seeing. So that's one technical aspect of it that's different. Another technical aspect that's different is it's the biggest bubble you'll ever come across. And I don't really necessarily even mean the dollar sign, although that's true as well. But what I really mean is if there's 600 people or whatever who are going to cash, then that's an enormous difference in between 600 and first and 600, because you're not going to see any more than your min cash would be 1.5 buy-ins or something. You're not going to get another 1.5 buy-ins for hundreds of eliminations after that. And if you're a short stack, the chips don't really matter that much to you if your risk is busting. And so if you're going to risk busting from the main event on the actual bubble, it doesn't make any sense, because even if you double up, the chance of your dollar value, expected value is increased by such a small amount, because you have so much determined still to get through, that it actually makes it very, very difficult to play almost anything. And so the ICM pressure, to use the phrase that most people use these days, on the actual bubble of the main event of the World Series is crazy high compared to almost any other tournament. And then, of course, throw in the fact that, okay, also in terms of real money, this is much more money than most people are going to get from any kind of min cash. And that's not a theoretical difference, but it definitely affects the way people play. And that bubble just lends itself to all kinds of crazy things. And so if you have chips, you can really take advantage of it. And if you don't have chips, you have to really make sure, even more so than most of the time, in most cases, that you just do not bubble that tournament. And then, of course, there's all the fun things that make the main event different, because there's all the hoopla and there's the length of the tournament. You're in Vegas for weeks to play it. You have to keep your endurance up and keep your focus up, and there's long days. And everyone there, even the pros, except for the most jaded of them, even the pros are usually really excited when they make a deep run in the main event, and there's TV cameras everywhere, and it's a spectacle that you just don't come across even in other televised tournaments or even in other big tournaments. It's just, there's only one tournament that is the WSOP Main Event, and I'm not sure exactly how that happened, but that's how it is these days. And so it's something I definitely encourage anyone who loves this game at some point in their life to try to find a way to get there. I know it's crazy expensive. I know it's not doable for everyone, but if you can do it, I definitely encourage it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And even a few years ago when I got more involved with RecPoker, and I was already a pretty good player. I'd won a bunch of money online, and I'd been playing my whole life, but it had never occurred to me to go play in the World Series of Poker. And I joined RecPoker. The next year I went down and played in some bracelets. I satellited into the main a little while, like a few years ago, and made it to day 2. And then I got in last year, as you know, and sold a bunch of action and got in there. And it is a completely unique experience. There is no other tournament like it. There's no other feeling like it. It is something that I really find a way to do it, folks. And it's not as out of reach as it may feel, honestly. So I do encourage people to take it seriously and don't feel like it's something that you can't take on. Matt, you were very in my pocket last year for throughout the entire thing.
Probably too much, but yeah.
No, I loved it. I mean, I'll tell you, and I'll tell the rest of the audience, I was pretty prolifically tweeting through the thing, and Matt would see my tweets, and I'd make something like, yeah, we made another $5,000, and I've got all these chips, and Matt would be like, get more chips. Your job isn't done yet. Put the pedal down. This is no time to get complacent. What was your experience of railing me in it last year, and how are you going to approach coaching me specifically for the main this year?
Yeah, I think my experience pretty much mirrors what you just said, which is I wanted to make sure that as fun as the main event is and as excited as you were to making a run, that you really kept your focus and kept working, not just because I had an investment in you, but because I know from playing these big tournaments, if you regret your last decision, if you don't give it everything you have, you're going to feel so bad about it for so long later. And I did not want that for you. I wanted you, however you ended up busting, I wanted you to really feel like you had your A game the whole time and you were content with whatever happened. Yes, of course it helped. I was also invested in you as an investor, but more someone I was mostly invested in your mental health. And I wanted to make sure that you did not come away being like, oh my God, I made a really dumb mistake because I was too excited and I just tweeted that I, made $5,000 or whatever. And so I'm glad that stayed with you, and I'm glad that that's what you took away from it. Because early in my career, a friend of mine said to me, my philosophy in tournaments is I am not satisfied with how many chips I have. I want more chips. And, with some adjustments, that's more or less what you should be doing as a tournament player. And yeah, it was really fun to rail you, and because I couldn't make the tournament last year myself, I was sick. It was sort of like it gave me it scratched that competitive itch a little bit that made me feel like I also was sort of working. I was in your corner. I was trying to give you pointers about whatever stack size you were facing, whatever situation in terms of the pay structure you were at. And so that was really fun. Obviously, it's super fun when you actually make a run. The main event is much less fun when you bust early, which does happen to a lot of people. But if you make a run, which I've also done a couple of times, there's really nothing like it. And as for this year, how we're approaching your coaching, I want to get a feel for what you're thinking first, and we'll talk about that in our sessions. But I'm going to start with just kind of making sure our pre-flop plan is sound. And in this first session, my plan is to go through how you think through different pre-flop, your pre-flop strategy at different stack depths, including the super deep stack depths you come across in the main event, because that's kind of different from most tournaments. But I want to build it up from, okay, do you have a pretty good plan for the normal tournament stack depths that we often come across, 30 and 40 blinds? And then how can we build up those ideas, or how do those ideas change as we go to the deeper stack depths? So my first goal for you is, whatever stage of the tournament you're at, I want you to have a really good idea of what your pre-flop plan is. I don't want you to memorize every single solver output for every single spot, because you're not going to do that. But I want you to have the ideas down so that you can come pretty close to what you think might be the good strategy there. And more importantly, I want you to have confidence in why you're doing what you're doing. So if you're 3-betting with 6-5 suited, I don't want you just doing it randomly because you think it might have been on the solver solution. I want you to have a good idea for what's going on there. And that's how we're going to start. And then I just want to see, how, because as a teacher, I try to really meet my students where they're at. And so as a coach, I try to look at hands players have played and show them hands that I've played and hear what their questions might be. And then I can kind of see, okay, this is an area where this particular student needs more work, or where we need to focus on. And so some people are way too aggressive. Some people are way too passive. Some people are trying too hard to just sneak it to the money. And so every student has a unique approach that I try to take. And so first I want to get your pre-flop plan pretty sound, but then I want to see, some hands that you've played and then I've played, and we can start talking. And then I think the next few topics, I haven't chosen the future topics past that yet, because I want to see, we only have a few sessions together. So I want to see what makes the most sense for you before I decide what to do. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm really looking forward to it. And again, if you're watching this live, you can join us this Thursday at 7:30 Eastern. If not, we're going to be doing this on the fourth Thursday of every month leading up to the WSOP main event. And of course, just like all our study groups at RecPoker, we'll be recording the session, and it'll be available for you to watch back as a premium member in our video archives. There's going to be a lot of really good stuff there. So last question to get some last chance to get some questions in the YouTube chat here. We're going to be closing out the show pretty soon. And I just want to remind our folks, if you want to enter our raffle at the end of the show to win a fantastic prize, all you have to do is type the words food bank into the YouTube chat. I see some folks are already doing it there. That's great. And I just want to say that the reason why we're doing this is because it's kind of a difficult time in the world right now. It's a very you might be surprised how many people need a little help putting food on the table. It might be people in your own neighborhood, people in your own community, people that you might not expect would need a little help putting some food on the table for themselves or their families or loved ones or kids. And so if you just pull out your smartphone, I know everyone's got a smartphone these days, just Google food banks near me. You'll find an organization that can really benefit from a few dollars out of your pocket if you volunteer hours out of your week or some non-perishable food items from your pantry. And I'd encourage you to do that. I just like to draw some attention to this fight against food insecurity by mentioning it a lot on the show. And if you just type the words food bank into the YouTube chat, you will be entered into our raffle to win a fantastic prize. Rob Washam, you're the RecPoker Santa Claus in charge of all the giveaways. What's in your bag of gifts this week for our winners?
Well, today I got an email from Sky Matsuhashi, and it's your last chance to get the Poker Forge for just $123 for 3 months. That's 40% off the regular price. And when you join before midnight tonight, you'll receive lifetime access to his newest course, How to Steal More Pots, which is a $300 value. absolutely free. So tonight we're giving away a free month to the Poker Forge. To find out more about that and our other learning partners, you can go to rec.poker, click on resources and learning partners.
Right on. Thanks, Rob, and thanks for all you do to help our members get connected with our fantastic learning partners. And I know how much you enjoy being Rec Poker Santa, so I hope you keep that up for a long time to come. All right, so we've got a couple YouTube questions through here. One's from Neil Jaworski, I should say. Sorry, Neil. If you were starting poker today, knowing what you know now, how would you structure your learning process?
That's a great question. I've always thought it'd be interesting to try to learn poker by not starting with pre-flop hand charts, because really pre-flop hand selection comes from how you play your hands post-flop. And so I think one interesting idea would be to just kind of throw someone into playing poker without giving them too much advice about starting hand selection, and then seeing the kind of spots they end up getting into after the flop, seeing like how they deal with river situations, how they deal with getting raised in the turn, how they go about whether to bet or whether to check, and just kind of learn basics about aggression, about calling and bluff catching spots, learning just how to play, learning what's a good hand, what's not such a good hand. And then hopefully the pre-flop stuff will come out of that. I mean, you don't want to wait too long before you start talking about pre-flop ideas, but I would really be interested in trying this approach. I've never actually tried it. I've always wondered, I don't have any students that start from square one, so I've not really had a chance to try this, but I've always thought it would be interesting to try to start with the post-flop player, work all the way backwards, maybe from the river, and then let someone see how the post-flop play develops. And that's sort of what I was doing a bit in the Poker Brain, is that I talk about a lot of the concepts around game theory before I get into, okay, so here are some pre-flop hand charts. And the whole idea of that was, okay, you can memorize a pre-flop chart, but if you don't understand what's going to be happening after the flop, this is not going to help you that much. And so I would want people to understand what the point of the game is first, and then kind of go back and tease out the pre-flop hands from there. And you're going to have to do it all eventually. You can't get around it. Like, you're not going to be able to not learn some of the pre-flop outputs that the solvers come up with, but I would not start with that. I think it'd be interesting to not start with that, but I can't tell you that definitely works. I never tried it before.
I like the answer though. We've got a question from DFS Brad. Is there a hand that you've played or seen recently that you would say is like the most intriguing poker hand that's come across you, that you've come across in the last little
I'll have to promote both my book and another podcast that I was on recently to answer this question. But my friend Jen Shahadi has a podcast that she's just kind of rebooted again called The Grid. And her thing, so her the premise of The Grid is that she's going to try to get a guest on for every single possible pre-flop hold'em hand. And so I just recorded an episode for her with this ace-4 suited hand that I played, which is also the hand that's most prominently featured in my latest book, 24 No-Limit Hold'em Tournament Hands from 2024. And it's a bit too much to get into the entire hand here, because I could talk about it for the length of this entire podcast, but I will just say that it starts with me and probably the two biggest stacks in the room when there's about maybe 25% of a tournament field left. And it ends with me going all in on the river in a 3-bet pre-flop pot for like 1.5 times the pot as a bluff. So that was a pretty blockbuster hand, and I won't reveal the outcome necessarily. I mean, I can if you want, but there's a lot to this hand, and it would take me way too long to get into it all. But I think I thought it was interesting enough. It was a fun hand and interesting enough and instructive enough, because part of the thing I love about this hand is that it's not like either of us were following a solver necessarily. Like when you play a pot that's a 3-bet pot, and then a big bet happens on a scary flop, and then the board runs out trips, all of which happened on this board. This is not a spot that either of us have now looked at. We're now like off the charts, and you're just playing poker. You're just kind of making a read against the other player based on other things. And that to me is like where the real fun is. Sure, it's great to have a super strong theoretical understanding, but at some point when you're in the trenches, you're just battling. And this was another thing about the hand that was great is this was a fellow professional, a really good player. And so this was a spot where there was just a lot going on. And it was a really interesting hand, and hope you check it out.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for us to say, folks, go check out the grid. Jennifer Shahadi is a fantastic, obviously, player and very accomplished. And I've really enjoyed the episodes of it that I listened to a little while ago before she kind of put it on hiatus. But a very cool concept. Very cool.
Yeah, I don't think my new one has dropped yet, so you can buy my book and read the hand now, or you can.
There you go.
Definitely wait till Jen's episode with her latest episode. It'll be my third appearance on the grid, actually, and when it does come out, you can check that out as well. Yeah.
Save some for the rest of us, Matt.
I tried
to. Yeah, go buy the book. And Matt, like since you mentioned it, where can people find your books? Where's the best place for them?
Amazon.com is still the best place to purchase all of my recent books. So the Game Plan, the Poker Brain, the 2 hand history books from the last 2 years. Those are all there.
Fantastic. And I know Rob Washam's actually recently been putting together the RecPoker bookstore here on our website. And because your books have been featured in our book study, you can actually, if you could go to the rec.poker website, go up to resources, you'll find the bookstore right there. You can find some blurbs, a link to purchase the book itself. And if you're a premium member, you can go back and watch the videos of our chapter by chapter discussion of the material. And you can also kind of read Rob's slides and presentations of all the subject matter chapter by chapter. So lots of great ways to get in there. And I do encourage folks to do it. I think they're really, really excellent books, particularly for recreational players. Lorianne, you had another question. Please jump in.
Oh, yes, I do. And I had to remember to unmute. I just want to know.
Take some of us 6 or 7 years. Like I wouldn't feel good about it.
I started talking. It was like, wait, got to unmute. Do your summer plans include a full WSOP schedule, or will you also be playing other big events around town as well?
I'm definitely not playing a full schedule of any kind anymore. I'll probably only be out there for a couple of weeks. My main focus is going to be the main event. That's still my plan. I missed playing it this last year. And so I'll definitely find a way to get myself. Definitely the plan is to find a way to get myself in that. And then play a few events around that, both WSOP events and then whatever other events might be going that I think will be good tune-ups. And then, of course, if I bust the main event, there's still a lot of action in Vegas. They finally figured this out. I mean, for a long time, the main event of the World Series was kind of the last event of the summer, which never made any sense because so many people were flying to Vegas just to play this. And they busted it. They didn't have a whole lot of options. Now, of course, there's tons of stuff going on after the main event. So, yeah, my plan right now, which is not set in stone, but is to arrive shortly before the main event, play a few tournaments, play the main event, and then play something else if I don't make a run in the main event. But hopefully, if I'm making a run in the main event, I'm not going to be messing around with other things. I'm mostly just going to be focused on that, that's probably my advice for almost anyone. Even though there's off days built into the main event, especially if you play like day 1A or something and don't play again for a few days, I still would do very little in the way of other tournaments while you're playing the main event. It's just you'll end up wanting your rest and your focus as much as possible. You won't realize it at the time, but when you get to day 4 or 5 and you're super tired, you might think, wow, maybe if I had rested a bit more before day 2, I would have some more focus or energy right now. So I plan to pretty much take it easy on my off days from the main event. I might still play something somewhere, but probably not. Probably I'll keep my head in the main event. I might have other students and clients, and not just Jim, but I have other students who are planning to play. So I should be able to keep myself busy even when I'm not playing.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Now, Matt, you kind of mentioned that people, if they wanted to play the main, they'd be wise to sell some action, sell some pieces of it. So it's easy for you. You're a big fancy poker author, and these idiots let me host the podcast, so people know who I am. But how do people that are less exposed to the poker world, less experienced, that don't have as much of a platform like John Sofsky's pointing to himself there, what can we do to make ourselves more attractive for people to buy action, to kind of make us to attract staking options?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys don't have enough degenerate friends or something, but I mean, most people, I think, if they tell their friends, hey, I want to do this crazy thing, do you want to buy 1% for $100? Hopefully you can, if you spam enough people with that offer, you'll get something. You might not be able to. I don't know. but in the crowds I run with, there are definitely people like, oh yeah, sure, whatever, I'll take it for. Now, if you don't have that option, then it's trickier. Then if you're trying to get people that actually think they're making a good investment, not just your friends who are happy to throw $100 to root for you and get email updates and stuff, because then you need to establish some kind of track record. So if you can, any kind of, I think, database argument is helpful. So even if you're just like, hey, at the $20 tournament level, my return on investment has been 40% or whatever it is. Like if you have some pretty good data to go by that shows you have won at poker at some level, that is immediately helpful. There's definitely some people out there that are willing to invest in anyone they think is a remotely winning player for the main event because there are so many fish in it. Now, I personally don't ascribe to that theory myself necessarily, because to me, it's not enough to just not be a fish in the main event. To be fair, if you're a fish, you're almost dead in the water. But it takes a bit more than that to really have an edge in the main event, despite people think. But I think if you are a pretty good player, you can at least come close to beating the rake in the main event and be pretty close to value at the $100, no markup rate. So yeah, any kind of, not just say, I think I'm good, but like, I have this record here. I've played X, 500 tournaments or whatever it is that you've played. If you've played more, that's fantastic too. And that's a really good selling point, I think, for people. I don't think there are a ton of great third-party tracking apps for, to show your poker record. I mean, there are some ways you can have some record in writing, but unfortunately, we really often don't know how many tournaments someone has busted in. We mostly know like what their successes have been, and so it's a little hard. Some of it is like people have to take your word for it. But try your friends first and see where you get, because even if it's smaller pieces, you might find that you can drum up more money than you expect, assuming you're not charging a markup. Even if you are, who knows if they think you're good. But I mean, yeah, it sounds like, John, you have not had success with that approach. Is that true, or have you tried it?
Oh no, you're muted again. You actually muted yourself on that time.
Yeah, I've actually never tried to get staking.
Well, yeah, you should try and see what happens first, and then you might be surprised. I'm not sure, but the circles I run in, like, just guys from home games over the years are happy to throw a few $100 at it, and then if you even just find one person who's willing to put in a big number, then that helps a lot too. Like, even if a lot of your friends like, sure, I'll give you $50 or 100. If there's one friend who's like, yeah, I'll take 20%. That's gets you a long way. Yeah,
great point. And I think you're kind of getting at the difference. And I wrote about this for Poker.org last year, the difference between a stake and a sweat. And your friends are there to kind of sweat along with you. Yes. They're not really expecting a positive return, but it's part of the fun. Whereas stakers, like, that's an investment, and you need to have a way of demonstrating a skill edge, and that's kind of hard to do in live poker, because all you see is just like you see how many things they've won, but you don't see the buy-ins. So that's
you're right that my arrangement is probably the best of both worlds, because it's both a sweat and a stake. Like, my investors are mostly people I've known for a very long time, and they want the sweat, they want to follow me, and they're not that concerned about what the results are, but they also very much believe and have their belief rewarded that they're making a strong investment that over the long term is going to be, give them money. Now, they're also willing to ride out the swings too. And so if you don't really trust the people, this is another thing. For something like just the main event of the World Series, it's fine, because they know that they're probably going to lose, and that's the end of it. But for tournament poker in general, like, for example, for most of last year, I was losing on the year, and then I won the last tournament I played of the entire year and got us unstuck for the whole year. And my investors know that this comes with the territory if you're not playing enough, if you're not putting in big volume. And so, if you have people like that in your life, then that's great. But for the main event, though, hopefully you'll have enough people that can just understand, okay, look, something like 85% of the time, you are simply going to lose this money. If you're okay with that and want to root for me, then, I'm offering this deal.
Yep, I think that's a great way of putting it. And like, I will say, so I put my staking package together last year in like 48 hours over Twitter, basically, because awesome. I got FOMO, and I was like, God damn it, I want to play the main. And And I sold some pieces as much as like 5% and some as little as 0.2%. Like I had a couple people chipping in for $20, $40
great.
just to have a piece of it, and it'll be a pain in the ass filling out all those tax forms, but it was definitely, I wouldn't do it any other way. And I'm lucky now that I've had a good result in it. A few people have already approached me about taking a bigger piece this year. So it's kind of an easier process. So that would be my advice. Start hosting a podcast and then go deep in the main. That opens up all sorts of doors for you. Apparently.
That's also hysterical to me too, because that happens to me as well. Like if I happen to hit something and I have a good couple of months, all of a sudden I seem to get more people interested in investing. And I'm kind of like, guys, this doesn't mean anything. Like I'm not any better at this now than I was 2 months ago when I was losing. I just happened to win this one. Like it doesn't actually mean anything. But no one understands that. So.
All right. Well, last question before we get to stake, study, stack to close out the interview. So this one is, what are you looking for in a coaching client or a coaching student? Do they have to have reached a certain point in their own development? Do they need like a database of so many hands or something like that? What's your what does a student have to bring to the table for you to work with them?
Well, I'm willing to work with anyone, but I think for students at the very beginning of their careers, they probably don't want to pay my rates because it wouldn't make much sense unless they have enough money to afford it. And then it's fine. If they have like some great paying job and just want to take up poker as a hobby and don't know anything, then sure, I'm happy to work with them. I think that makes sense. And I think actually a lot of my clients don't fall exactly into that, but most of my students do have full-time jobs and poker is their hobby. And their main goal is they just want to be winning tournament poker players. And they don't care that they're overall, I shouldn't say they don't care, but they're willing to pay for lessons with me because they know that if they didn't do that, their results would be a lot worse and they wouldn't improve. And part of the value, of course, is financial. That's a big part of it. But part of it is also they want the satisfaction of knowing they're getting better at something, knowing they're understanding the game more than they did before, knowing that they're putting work in and improving and seeing results. And yes, by the way, that's also going to mean more money from the playing side. So hopefully the lessons more than pay for themselves. But even if it's pretty close, that's still a net win for a lot of my students because they're getting so much better at this game that they love. And instead of, let's say instead of losing a bunch of money every month playing poker, they're losing a little because they're paying me, but they're doing so much better at poker. And then eventually they will be winning at everything. So anyway, short answer is I don't have like requirements for my students. I do recommend that if you want to take private lessons, you're a fairly serious student of the game. And this is crucially important, which is that you are going to put in the work when we're not doing our sessions. Because if the only time you're studying poker is when you're chatting with me for an hour and a half for, once a week or once a month or whatever it is, you're never going to get anywhere. Like unless you're putting in the work, reviewing your own hands, doing your own studying, taking notes on what I said and coming back. My students that do that see massive improvement. My students that kind of tune in and out every so often, I can't help them. I can't help you if you're not going to do the work away from the table. So that's really much more than like where you are as a player. It's the commitment to put in the work on your own that really matters.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I think, people want to get better at poker. They don't want to put in the time to get better at poker because it is work. And, you
Sure.
have to have a good learning mindset about it. I will say, and I'm sure, Matt, you'll agree, if folks want to kind of take some baby steps into coaching, a lot of our Wrecking Crew members are available as coaching. We're very affordable. It's a great way to kind of dip a toe in and see if coaching is for you. And then you can graduate to some of the big boys like Matt Matros, Matt Affleck, Mark Zhang, some of the professional players that are part of our Wrecking Crew. And, they're part of the crew because they like working with recreational players. And it's never too early to get involved and to take that next step. It can really advance your skill as a player exponentially. And otherwise, if you do it all by yourself, you're just going to be, you'll get there, but it's going to take a lot longer. And you can why learn from your own mistakes when you can learn from the mistakes of other people that have been doing it a lot longer than you? So
that's a great way to put it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a delight. We're going to play Stake, Study, Stack. So, Matt, I'm going to give you 3 names. You got to choose one that you would stake in a tournament or cash game, one that you'd like to study with for your own improvement, and one that you'd really prefer to just stack them at the tables and take all their chips and just ruin their day. Okay.
That'll probably be the easiest one, but okay, we'll see.
The So we've kind of selected some names of other coaches and authors and excellent players. The 3 names for you: Stake, Study, Stack, Dara Carney, Alex Fitzgerald, Andrew Brokos. Who's it going to be?
Oh, wow. Man, I thought Stack would be the easiest, but I like those guys. So this is this is a tricky one.
We try to make it hard.
Well, I've done Andrew Brokos's, speaking of other podcasts, I've done Brokos's Thinking Poker podcast several times, and I just love talking strategy with him and going over hands and ideas and concepts. So the easiest one is going to be Andrew Brokos. For Stake, I'll have to go with Dara on that one because I know that he is really dedicated to his craft. He puts in a ton of time for his coaching, but a ton of time with his playing as well. And he really is constantly trying to find the advantage. He doesn't put himself in spots he doesn't think he'll be successful. He doesn't play over his head. He's got the humility and the skill set. He'll be the first to tell you he's played the main event some number of times. I don't think he's ever cashed in it, which just shows you how hard it is because, I mean, I can't think of anyone more likely to cash the main event than Dara Kearney. So I would have to say Stake for Dara Kearney. And because I don't know Alex Fitzgerald as well as I know those other 2 guys, just by default, I'm going to end up stacking him because I've never spoken to him in real life, unlike those other 2 guys. I like his work, but I'll stack him because you're trying to get everyone's money when you're at the table, and so okay, he's the guy I'm gonna have to stack. Yeah,
good answer.
He's coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll let him know what you said.
Okay, perfect.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. That will be. He is a guest coming up in a few weeks. That'll be a fun conversation as well. All right. Well, Matt Matros, this has been a pleasure. I knew it would be. Is there? Where can our guests find you? How can folks get more Matt Matros in their lives? Is there a newsletter, a social media handle? How can our listeners say, "Hey, Matt, thanks for coming on the show"?
Sure. Well, you can email me directly at jacksup@mattmatros.com. That's a good way to reach out. And if you're interested in lessons, that's a good way for that as well. But there's also direct messaging on X, Twitter. I'm Matt_Matros there. I also have a Substack called Matt Matros's Poker Brain. If you Google that, I'm sure you'll find it. I updated that a few times at the beginning of the year. I've had a little bit of a lull, but I am planning to get back to that again soon with some more hand discussions. That's something else you can find my work at, some other way to find my work. And so in all those ways, all those methods of reaching out are out there in various socials. So I'm sure you can find me. I'm pretty findable.
Right on.
I just want to give a shout out to your Substack. I've enjoyed reading your stuff on there.
Thank you so much.
People should sign up for it.
Nice. And of course, you can always tune in on the 4th Thursday of every month here at RecPoker at 7:30 Eastern. And you can see what happens when Matt cracks my head open and looks inside and see what we can come up with. Matt Matros, thank you so much. I'm so looking forward to that and so appreciative of your time tonight. Have a fantastic evening, and thanks again for coming back on the RecPoker Podcast.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you on Thursday.
Thanks, Matt.
Can't wait.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Well, that was a good. I really have a lot of respect for it. Yeah, he's a good guy, and he really knows his stuff. So it was very cool having him along for the ride last year, and this is going to be a great year as well. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm really looking forward to this. Like I said, this week of coaching at RecPoker is phenomenal. If you're watching live, in about 10 minutes, we're going to be starting Mark Zhang's coaching session. Tomorrow night is Marek Madness, the finals, where I'll be joined by Matt Affleck in the booth doing commentary. That's at 9:00 Eastern on YouTube. You can join for free if you like what we're doing here. You'll have a lot of fun tomorrow night. Then Wednesday, it's Matt Affleck's coaching session with our premium membership, along with a ton of other great stuff on Wednesday. Don't get me wrong. And then Thursday, we're right back at it with Matt Matros. So a great week for our RecPoker members, and it's not too late to get involved. And of course, this will be the 4th week of the month every month for all of these fantastic coaching opportunities. So I hope some people get into it. Let's run through a couple updates here before we give away a fantastic prize. Rob Gardner, we had a contest for our members for the global leaderboard, I think. Do you want to share some details about that?
We did, and Iowa Hawks Matt was our winner.
Oh, nice. Way to go.
5 tournaments, I think. So I'm gonna tag him, but if you're out there listening, you can. What's the line, Jim? You can email Jim
info at rec.poker. That's
I
our.
thought it was email RecPoker Jim and choose the picture of you eating a peanut butter. Never mind. I got it mixed up. All right.
Yeah, send that email to info@rec.poker to claim your prize. And yeah, that's very cool. I love that you had that set up, and it's just another way that our members get to kind of compete with each other and have some fun and play some poker. That's what it's all about, right? And we've got and then again, I want to remind our folks on April 16th, it's the Go for the Gold. If you are a silver pin winner, like some of us around here, actually the lighting's not very good, but it's that nice big one right in the middle on the hat there, just in case anyone's wondering. Asterisk. Yeah, who said asterisk? And again,
I think we all said asterisks.
And again, just to our premium members, get involved in the premium membership events throughout the month, because every month we're going to be giving away a coaching session with Mark Zhang and a coaching session with Matt Affleck. I just think that's so cool that these guys are coming and sharing their expertise with our members. They're just good folks who want to make the recreational poker world a better place, and you can be a part of it here in our premium membership for only $22 a month. John Somsky, why don't we go through some home game results for the last couple of weeks, and then we'll give away a fantastic prize and roll on out of here.
Notice how this time I am unmuted. I am talking and you are hearing.
Total pro.
I do
pro
learn.
Move.
Okay, on yeah, except for I was on the wrong page. My thing had to flip.
Baby steps.
Okay.
We're getting there.
On March 12th, we had our mixed game championship series. So that's one where we keep points for your top 10 scores of the year. We play it on the second Wednesday of every month. And then whoever has the highest point totals wins the player of the year points race. And that gives you a silver pin, which will allow you to play in the aforementioned Go for the Gold series. Anyway, Ship and Flip Wreck, Luke O'Driscoll got his first mixed victory for this year. He also took the player of the year points race by less than 1/3 of a point over Don't Chase 666.
Okay.
We also had our daily series TOC, another way to earn a silver pin. And Dandy Resg, Daniel A, got his first Tournament of Champions victory for the year. Then on March 10th, Bob the Turner, Bob Franklin, got his first nightly victory. Maddie Bumpo,
Nice.
Kathleen Twomey got her third nightly victory for the year. Evil Roy CA, David Westerveld got his first nightly victory for the year. East Coast Bitter, Ben Enslow got his first nightly victory for the year. E. Anderson 85, Eric Anderson got his third nightly victory for the year. Bone Crusher 14, Marcel Dusick got his fourth international victory for the year.
Amazing.
And JD Cat, Jeff Catalano got his first international victory for the year. And K-Poker wannabe, Ron Payton, won the LPP event for the first time this year. He can contact info@rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker. But wait, there's more. We have 2 weeks worth of results this time. So Ship and Flip Rep, Luke O'Driscoll. Okay, so this is the time that was actually his third nightly victory of the year. The previous one was...
He's a killer, though. Luke playing from all the way down there in New Zealand, and he's constantly being referenced here in our winner circle. Way to go, Luke.
And K-Poker wannabe, Ron Payton, got his fifth nightly victory for the year. Michael Babker, got his second nightly victory for the year. TMP 12198 got his or her first nightly victory for the year. Maddie Bumpo, Kathleen Twomey got her third nightly victory for the year. A really mad guy got his first nightly victory for the year. And then PetVet33 Kim Kilroy won the daily mixed practice event for the first time this year. Isenma got his or her second international victory for the year. East Coast Bitter Ben Enslow got his first international victory for the year. And Bruce K54, Bruce Kiefer, won the LPP event for the first time this year, and he can contact info@rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
There you go. Well, congratulations to all our home game players and winners. And Yeah, I love giving away these prizes. If you play in the Sunday home game and win it, the games are free, but the prizes are real. You get a whole month at Learn Pro Poker, run by Ryan LaPlante. And you also get a visit from Ripley, Lorianne's amazing cat, who's making her weekly appearance on the RecPoker podcast here.
Yeah.
So they know when you're on screen. They're very sensitive creatures.
She
Lorianne.
does. And she's been going around my feet all the time, and I was just like, okay, it's gonna happen. And there she is.
Well, I want to thank everyone for the great trip or a great show. I want to also point out the Running Aces. They are hosting the Mid-State Poker Tour on April 3rd through 13th. There's going to be several events going on there. And it's just one of the great events that they do throughout the year. And we're also getting serious about Rec Poker Weekend on August 1st and 2nd. I'll get out there on the 31st of July on Thursday night. We'll have some fun tournaments all day Friday and Saturday, and then I'll be heading back on Sunday. So circle that weekend, folks. It's going to be a lot of fun at Running Aces. Now, let's give away a fantastic prize, and let's say the word food bank a few more times. Invisible producer Rob Gardner is going to pull up the wheel, and let's see who the winner is going to be. We got a bunch of great names in there. I want to thank got some first-time YouTube chatters as well today. So thanks for coming along and having fun with us. It's more fun when you're doing this along with us in real time. BC14, hello, congratulations. So I know you're a regular listener. I'm glad to see you finally get a chance to step into the winner's circle here. Please send an email to info@rec.poker to claim your fantastic prize, which I believe, as Rob said, is a free month at the Poker Forge. So that's very exciting. All right, gang. I think if that's all there is to it, I want to thank Matt Matros. What a fantastic guest he was. The Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. Rob Gardner, Lorianne Persinger, Rob Washington, John Somsky, and Joe Coolis. All our fantastic chatters in the YouTube chat window there. Thank you so much for all that you've done. All our premium members and our Patreon subscribers, we really couldn't do it without them. They make all the magic happen here. And all of you listening at home, driving and painting and doing dishes, whatever you're doing. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week on the RecPoker Podcast.